everybody, welcome to Creature Club. I am Mikey DC, and this is Daniel.
Hi.
White? Yes.
Yeah.
I usually don't say your second name.
That's fine.
And because I have to say both my names because you guys call me both of them.
Yeah, sorry about that.
This is a podcast where we talk about the monsters in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We go through them alphabetically, and we talk about real-world history, if there is any. We talk about the history in the game of D&D, and we talk about how we use it in our setting and in encounters. Today's episode is the Bugbear.
The first of the kind of goblin family that we'll be covering.
He's one of the goblins' cousins, along with the hobgoblins. And yeah, he's just for how we describe his look there for the people who don't really know what bugbears are, Daniel.
I think we nailed it last time we talked about this, where we said the bugbear looks like Wolfman.
Yeah, definitely like Wolfman.
If you can imagine the old Wolfman costumes, it's actually quite similar to that.
Also, like a mean Wookiee as well.
Yeah, like a mean kind of shorter-haired Wookiee.
And if you just kind of think about a goblin, size him up, give him some hair, that's kind of a bugbear, you know?
Yeah, actually, if you got like a goblin and then made it like a really tall, ripped person, and then gave them kind of a gorilla face and big ears.
All right, open up Photoshop there at home. Get a goblin.
Everybody
picture.
Listening.
All right, get a goblin picture.
If you don't already have Photoshop, just pirate it. Nobody will mind.
Free transform, make him taller. Draw some hair on him. There you go. That's a bugbear.
I can't believe you made a proper Photoshop reference. I've never used it. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so anyway, the bugbear. It's the biggest and meanest of the goblins. The bugbear is large. It's not large size. It's just a big person. And this is something that's kind of interesting actually. So obviously there's three bugbear. There's three goblins. I'm going to interchangeably use them by accident a lot. So There's three goblins. There's or goblinoids if you prefer. There's what we call traditional goblins, which are the small kind of meek things, sort of like what you got in the Mines of Moria if you've watched the Lord of the Rings movies. And then you have the hobgoblins, which are kind of taller and like they're sort of structured. They have like proper armies. They respect a sort of their own system of honor. And then you've got bugbears who are kind of like they're kind of like they're sort of I guess chaotic, for lack of a better term, and that's where they are in the book. And the three of them, the three types of goblins, represent the three kind of shades of evil in the alignment system of Dungeons and Dragons. So hobgoblins, obviously, with their code of honor, are like lawful evil. Default goblins are neutral evil because they're sort of just self-serving and they don't really care about the system they're in. And then bugbears are chaotic evil because they form like loose groups, but they hate like order. They don't really like structures or societies or hierarchies or rules. Really, they're just fundamentally interested in themselves and in creating, I suppose, disruption or upset for other creatures.
And it's funny because it's almost you do see a lot where the three of these guys do work together sometimes. I guess because they're just like they're the same kind of species. They're the same family of like creatures, really. But because they all have they're all different alignments, but you do see them working together. Like it's kind of strange, but
and as it says here in the monster manual, so and this is good fun. Bugbears usually enslave goblins they encounter, and they bully hobgoblins into giving them gold and food in return for serving as scouts and shock groups. So these are like the worst of the goblins. Like these are the goblins that are mean to the other goblins. But it says that like even though they are terrible people and terrible, I guess even goblins, they're useful. They're too good not to have on side, which is sort of a fun point. But let's
good
go
at what they do.
Yeah, they're the best they are at what they do. But let's talk a little bit about their, I guess, history, both in the real world and in D&D.
Yeah, there's not too much on them, but basically, bugbear is like another word used for the boogeyman, really.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of like someone that comes at you at night and something that you would tell your kids, don't be unruly or else the bugbear will get you at night.
Yeah, exactly. And it was supposed to like live in forests and snatch kids and all that classic stuff. The bugbear is an interesting case. It's one of these classic things in Dungeons and Dragons where you had like bugbears and hobgoblins and goblins and orcs and whatever, and like these were all kind of just the same thing, right? They were just like things you scared kids with. They didn't have any sort of strong distinctions.
Yeah.
Until we kind of got to the sort of like Tolkien D&D era. And the same is true for like giants. Like giants, ogres, and trolls like used to be kind of interchangeable. Like, and they are in old fairy tales, right? Like, there's not really a distinction, but obviously in D&D they are like different creatures with different stats. And this was because they wanted to make like different monsters for you to fight. You want to have something like, you know, it's all well and good to say, oh well, you know, goblins and hobgoblins and bugbears are all the same, but like because Dungeons and Dragons wants you to have like different types of fights that use different skills, they want to make different types of monsters. So so the bugbear is a very, very old monster, unsurprisingly. It was initially introduced in the first Greyhawk supplement, which was in, I think, 1976, 5 or 6.
Is that the kind of, were those the books that were like, here, there's the supplements, and then you got to use, was it chainmail for combat? That game?
It's exactly that. Yeah, they started out like Dungeons and Dragons started basically as like an expansion rule set for a medieval tactics game called Chainmail.
Yeah.
That like apparently used another game called Outdoor Survival for overland travel. Like it was actually 2 different games, and then like D&D was kind of the weird like the glue in between these games, like the dungeons and the character classes, but like a lot of it was just these other games that they were just using.
That is it's so hardcore. It's so cool the way like, let's just make a game out of 2 games already, you know, like that we have. Like exactly. It's really cool.
Like, not to get too distracted, but actually, do you know where the idea of like Dungeons and Dragons sort of initially came from?
I don't know. Let's hear it.
This is just really cool. So obviously chainmail is kind of this like medieval tactical war game, and so you would have sieges because that's what happened in medieval war. And in medieval sieges there was a thing called sapping, and sapping was basically, and I might get this wrong, and if you know better feel free to correct me, but as far as I understand it, sapping is basically kind of like, it's like sort of espionage and disruption on the enemy's fortifications, but one of the main things they do is they dig tunnels. Right, so they dig a tunnel, and the idea was be that you dig a tunnel under your opponent's wall, and it would collapse because the ground was gone. Like you'd cause a cave in basically, and the wall would collapse when you caved in your cave. But they wanted to start representing these battles in the tunnels. Okay. Which is where dungeons came from. The idea that like, this is a small tunnel, there's not enough room for the whole army. This is going to be a fight between like both sides' best troops, right? They have to basically like fight it out for this tunnel. And that's where this idea of like a small number of soldiers or a small number of like, you know, combatants on both sides, and kind of this tactical grid combat, and like even the underground setting all came from this idea, or at least that's what I've heard. I could be completely wrong, but I thought it was a really interesting story.
I think I heard something similar before, but it could have been just you telling me. It does sound familiar to me.
It could be, it could just be me spreading lies, but
spreading lies,
but not deliberately.
But yeah, so the bugbear was introduced in the first one of these supplements, and if you guys remember, Greyhawk was also where the beholder first showed up. So very, you know, very early game, very early stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
I don't know what other monsters are on Greyhawk, but sure, we'll leave that for another day. And he's ever since then he's been a D&D staple, you know, like he's been in every single edition since then. Like
it's been in a lot of editions. It's been in every edition. It's been a playable race in a couple of editions. In one way or another. The most notable thing about its history, which is something that I love, is that it obviously showed up in 4th edition, but and there was 2 bugbears in 4th edition. At least in the first monster manual, there was the warrior and the bugbear strangler, right?
Yeah.
And the strangler is credited with the first recorded death of a player character in 4th edition. There was a convention, and they like rolled out these, you know, monsters, and like, you know, that's kind of funny, but like, as someone who's played 4th edition, it is so hard for a player character to die.
That is very true. Yeah.
So I have to assume some really bad rolls happened.
Yeah, and then later there was another bugbear introduced called the Bugbear War Dancer. But we'll go into that maybe, I think, when we go into encounters, probably, because there's a lot of cool stuff, but it's kind of to do with context in encounters.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But in 5th edition, you have 2 bugbears.
Yes.
So it's nothing as colorful as the other editions, but we'll go into them in a sec. But let's read a little bit more about what he has written down here. Okay, we already said that they're goblinoids. They're followers of Hrugek,
Nice. I love that pronunciation. You are nailing it today, my friend.
Yeah, I'm putting on a little putting a little bit of a accent onto it.
I was going to say, is that kind of Scots? I'm getting a little bit of Scots from that.
Hrugek. Yeah, probably.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So he's basically, sorry, Hrugek. I don't want to assign Hrugek a gender. That's not fair. Hrugek is a god and above genders. But Hrugek is, I'm not doing as well as you, DC. I'm sorry. Is a lesser god who dwells in Acheron, which is I think sometimes called the Abyss. I think they're the same thing. Which is basically just one of the lower planes. It's one of the places where the bad demons and the bad gods hang out. I think Grumpsh and Magliobet and all those other like evil gods hang out in Acheron.
Yeah.
Hrugek's main thing, aside from obviously being kind of the god of bugbears, is that Hrugek loves heads, loves decapitation, loves collecting heads. Like Hrugek's lair is described in one of the older source books, and it's apparently just like a lair, and it's full of just decapitated heads that Hrugek sleeps on.
That is gas, because my friend Dave ages ago played a bugbear called Wingen, and because he was kind of starting out playing, so he decided to like mess around, and he kept decapitating people and keeping them in
oh my god
sacks. He kept decapitating people, keeping them in sacks, and he would throw heads into like to set off traps. But
oh my god,
we didn't have any idea that this was a thing.
That's actually so cool.
Yeah, that's really. That's kind of like, that must be Hrugek up there, just like
that is like literally like he is like the champion of Hrugek. He is like his god's favored like disciple, effectively, completely accidentally. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that is...
I gotta tell him that he would.
You
that,
like
we were talking about that today. That's the thing. Like,
oh, that's so cool.
But what about these gods? Actually, I kind of wanted to bring it up. I don't want to tangent too long, but I kind of like the way you can use these, because with like a Hrugek or with a Grumpsh or someone like that, it means that if you want to put them in your setting. And let's say if you want very orky orcs or very goblin-y goblins who are kind of evil, shite people kind of guys. Yeah, but you also kind of want, maybe you want player characters to play as orcs, and they're kind of more neutral side. You can kind of make the most orky of orcs and the most bugbear or bugbears to like be the ones who are followers of these gods, because it's kind of implied that these gods are making them be chaotic and making them be evil.
Yeah, like there's always the implication that like the reason this creature is the god of the bugbears is because they like made the bugbears, and it's safe to presume that if an evil creature made the bugbears, then like the bugbears are almost evil by their nature. But of course, that doesn't mean that you can't have them be changed. It doesn't mean that like the example, I actually did something similar. I was running a game recently, and like the orcs in my setting are basically irredeemably evil. But that's because Grumpsh effectively is able to drive them to evil. Because Grumpsh created the orcs, is able to sort of push the orcs towards evil, if you know what I mean? Like, always a presence in their heads. But the half-orc player in my party is a paladin. So I said, but you're fine because another god has stepped in on your behalf. Effectively, you've made an oath to another god, and they've replaced Grumpsh. So now you don't have those predilections anymore. And that's sort of the idea that, like, half-orcs are a little bit safer because, first of all, they're not all orc, but also because if they become a paladin or a cleric or even a druid, they can kind of replace Grumpsh with another thing that's important to them. And obviously, full orcs could do that too, but it's much harder for them.
Yeah. I guess the reason why I bring it up is because sometimes you might have players who are like, I want to play an orc. And you're like, you don't want to say no, because you kind of want to make your players want to play kind of whatever they want, but you don't want to be all like, listen, orcs are like this in my world and this and like this, because saying no too much is not great. You kind of want your players to play what they want, So
I mean, judicious, obviously, use your own best judgment. But yeah, like that's the thing. I think in my opinion, the evil kind of monster race creating gods are a really elegant solution to like monstrous races and why they are bad, and also how they can be good.
Yeah.
And like obviously that might be kind of an oversimplification, but then D&D has a lot of oversimplifications.
Yeah, definitely. It's a game made of them. So like
I think it was Matt Colville said it, but he said that he made the point that like there are 3 books in Dungeons and Dragons. One of them is called the Monster Manual. This game is about fighting monsters.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it wasn't, the 3rd book would be called the Book of Compassion.
Yeah, you don't like, adding like a gray area to D&D it can be fun, but it's like
it can be. You have to have the right group. That's all there is to it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all there is to it. So let's continue on anyway.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay, so last point about the bugbears is that they, and this is interesting. I don't know why this is actually. Sorry, I think I do know why this is the case. It talks about how bugbears are like surprisingly sneaky, and they're like ambush predators. And that kind of explains why they're so lazy. They prefer to just jump a group of merchants or whatever, beat them up, and then take their stuff and then go back to bed. But the reason I think this is the case, the reason I think they like ambushes is like I think it's a callback to their nature as like child snatching, phantasms, right, from like the woods. The idea that like in your D&D setting, like a mother might say to their children, if you're not careful, the bugbear is going to snatch you. And it makes sense, right? Because the bugbear is supposed to be this kind of big but sneaky, surprisingly quiet creature that's still pretty scary.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. I like the fact that like that's almost kind of a callback to those fairy tales in a way. But yeah. And also it means you could use it as a fun like thing in your world, right? You could make it like a cultural thing, like, quieter than a bugbear's pads or whatever. Like, you could reference it. Like it could be a thing that people say in your world. It also mentions how, and this is kind of cool, that they can be used as mercenaries. They are dependable mercenaries as long as they are supplied with food, drink, and treasure. So that's kind of cool because that suggests that both, if you are using a non-bugbear villain, they can have bugbears, but also like, this is the party might hire bugbear mercenaries, and that's kind of interesting. I like that a lot. I like that idea that like, I know we mentioned like gray areas and stuff, but I do like the idea that the party are like, well, maybe we just hire these bugbears to go do that thing. And then, I mean, if they die, then it's just some bugbears, like.
Yeah. It does. Like it is. That's actually a good and elegant solution to the kind of gray area of like, okay, these people exist who are just out there for money, and if they'll go to the highest bidder, and but now we're going to pay these bugbears to help us out because we have more money. Like it's just. They're there, and that's cool. So, and also says that because of that, they're like the kind of the guys who, let's see, I'll read it out here. Like a wounded member of a bugbear band might be left behind to help the rest of the band escape. Afterward, that bugbear might help pursuers track down its former companions if doing so saves its life. So they're very.
Well, they're self-serving. That's all it is. It's chaotic evil, like through and through. It's even though they are part of these war groups, and it describes how they're very small tribes, and they're just led by the strongest member of the tribe, right? That's the whole idea, that they don't have any hierarchy or allegiance to that system. They are just part of it because if they were the strongest, they would be in charge. Inherently, anyone who isn't the chief is weaker than the chief, and therefore probably just resents the chief, actually. And when you tell me where the rest of your friends are, they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, you're probably just going to kill them like you killed me almost, and my friends, or not even friends necessarily. So yeah, it's like, I think that's the idea, right? Like hobgoblins might be evil, but they wouldn't betray their own. They would despise that idea. Whereas bugbears just don't have that system in place. They just don't care about each other.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and I like that system. I like the implication that like this is sort of like it's kind of I like the fact that the bugbears are like the biggest and the strongest of the goblinoids, but they're so self-interested that they can never get anything done.
Yeah, like if they were like a bit less self-serving and they can work as a unit, then they'd probably be like the toughest bugbears, the most powerful goblins. I mean, like
yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay. I think that's everything in here. We got 2 whole stat blocks to talk about. You want to jump into them?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's jump into the meat and potatoes. It's time for Dinner Town. Oh man,
I'm sorry for putting my feet in your potatoes.
You did. It's all right.
You did say to jump in. Okay. First up, we got our regular baseline bugbear. Bugbear type A. It's actually not called that. It's just called bugbear. So it's a medium humanoid, goblinoid, unsurprising, chaotic evil. All that stuff we kind of covered. Its armor includes, it's got hide armor and a shield, which makes sense. It's kind of supposed to be a scavenger. Bugbears don't really make their own stuff. They just steal from others, or they, kill them and then steal their stuff.
Yeah.
Looting, I guess. That's what adventurers do. So, Hey, don't throw too much shade. They've got a pretty good number of hit points and same speed as a party. They're basically exactly what you'd expect from kind of an evil humanoid. They've got pretty good physical stats and not great mental stats. The only notable thing really I would say is that they haven't got a negative wisdom, which I guess sort of suggests that they are kind of canny.
Yeah, and it goes well with their perception,
ambushing, and kind of like being like cunning and stuff like that. Like not necessarily being smart, but being kind of, conniving.
Yeah,
would be a good word for it.
So skills, it has stealth +6, and it has a survival of +2. Stealth actually, makes sense now that we read the part here. But I guess when I was first reading this, I was kind of surprised that bugbears are considered the stealthy guys. I always thought they were kind of tanky boys.
Yeah, they're interesting because I think the idea is that they're almost both. Like they're big and strong enough that they could be kind of tanky.
Yeah.
But they can also kind of surprise the players, and that's almost like something cool about them that like you don't expect it, and that means that they get to do cool stuff that maybe they wouldn't otherwise get to do.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that based on the +6 in stealth, they must have expertise in it.
Yeah.
So, because obviously if they were proficient, it wouldn't be that high. So my assumption is that they have expertise, which is kind of cool because, obviously expertise is commonly associated with the rogue class in the player's handbook. So there's kind of a roguish implication there, which makes sense with their kind of ambushy nature and even other stuff they've got here in their stat book that we'll get to. Senses, they've got dark vision to 60 feet because everybody has dark vision, and the normal passive perception. They speak common and goblin, and they have a challenge rating of 1, which means that one of these guys is equal to a party, which is not true. One of these guys is not equal to a party.
Yeah, one of these guys is equal to one level 1 guy in a party, I think, is the implication. I don't know. It's a little bit screwy. It's never even, it's not even a perfect system, because sometimes if you do go by the book, they're still either very tough or not tough enough,
Yeah, like challenge rating 1 is supposed to mean that 4 level 1 adventurers would be able to take on this thing without anybody dying.
Yeah.
Which is obviously true because it is one bugbear.
Yeah.
Like, I would go as far as saying 2 adventurers that are level 1 could probably beat this thing up. But obviously, the CR system is based on things like how much health do they have, blah, 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 how much damage can they do. Like, there's, maths behind it. And obviously, what they are saying is the math says this. And you can look at that and go, well, I'm smarter than your computer, sir. I have the human brain. I'm the perfect organism. But yeah, so I think what they're saying broadly is that the bugbears are a little tougher maybe than goblins or individual goblins or individual orcs, but obviously a bugbear is not a challenge for a group of adventurers.
Yeah.
But I think we'll get to that when we talk about encounters. Okay, so first ability, brute. So it gets to add an extra dice with its weapons. Only melee weapons. It gets to add an extra dice with its melee weapons when it hits you, which is a very good ability.
Yep. Just more damage.
So obviously in this bugbear we have here, they have a Morning Star. So normally a Morning Star is a D8 weapon. In this case it's 2D8, which is pretty good. There's no weapon in the game that deals 2D8. So already they've kind of surpassed, normal stuff that the players can do, which is pretty cool whenever a monster does that.
And then it has a javelin, but it can only add the extra dice onto when it hits it with a melee attack of a javelin.
Exactly.
So if it instead of 1d6, it's 2d6 now.
And if it tosses the javelin, it doesn't get the bonus.
Yeah,
which is fine. That's just the way the rule works. I guess the idea is that the rule represents them just being very big and strong and kind of physically overpowering. So obviously, if they throw something or toss an arrow. If they fire an arrow,
toss
toss that arrow at them.
No, I can picture these guys as taking a handful of arrows out of a quiver and just throwing them at your players.
I mean, that would be pretty cool, but it would be silly. It would be like they have javelins.
Yeah,
this is foolish. And then they have another ability,
surprise attack.
Yes.
If the bugbear surprises a creature and hits it with with an attack during the first round of combat, the target takes an extra 7 or 2d6 damage from the attack. So that's not that's something different than a sneak attack for a rogue.
Yes,
that's that's a bugbear thing.
Yes, exactly. Surprise attack is it is cool though, because obviously it's called surprise attack and it's similar to the rogue sneak attack. Like, thematically, they're both about having the advantage on the enemy, and of course, they both use D6s, which is a small thing, but still.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the surprise attack does not require the Bugbear to use their melee attack.
Yeah.
So I very much see this as a case of first round of combat, the Bugbear hasn't been spotted, and it tosses a javelin at somebody, and then they take a load of extra damage on top of the javelin damage, which is maybe why they are CR1, right? Because if I throw a javelin, I'm probably dealing on average 12 damage, which means, like, Ranger and below go down, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like the wizard probably goes down, the rogue probably goes down, like, the barbarian and the fighter might be okay, and they've also got armor, but like I can kind of understand how this could go very wrong. Okay, and then they have two weapons, which is all their actions are just weapons they have. They have a morning star and a javelin, which we've already covered.
Yep, that's it. That's Bugbear.
That's a Bugbear.
That's your vanilla Bugbear with nothing else on top. But we got a Bugbear.
But I want sprinkles in the form of a chieftain.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, you got that. You got Bugbear Chief with sprinkles. Sorry, this is a strange thing we're doing.
You know what? That's my fault, DC. Don't you apologize. Okay. Bugbear Chieftain is very, very similar to the Bugbear. It's a little stronger and it's a little smarter, which all makes sense. It's got the same skills. Biggest difference in the skills is actually it's also proficient in intimidation.
Yeah. Which we kind of talked about this before, like out of the podcast, but intimidation is not really a thing that you would use in an encounter, Yes,
exactly.
But it's a good thing to throw there because you know that this guy, why this guy is the chief.
Exactly, yeah. Like it's a really cool piece of like thematic, like monster building where it's not likely the Bugbear Chief is going to use that intimidation. In fact, there isn't even any ability in the Bugbear's stat block that uses intimidation.
Yeah.
But we know from this, lore before, it says, of course, the Bugbears hate each other. Well, hate each other is too strong a word. They don't really care about each other. They don't really care about living in peaceful societies. So whoever's the fiercest and the strongest is always on top.
Yeah.
So of course, this guy's on top because, guy or girl, Bugbear Chief or Chief S, that's not a word. The Bugbear, the Bugbear in charge is either the Bugbear in charge because, probably a mixture of they are stronger than everyone else, but also it's reasonable to assume they're probably a little bit more persuasive and I guess in this case scarier.
Yeah.
So they've got intimidation, which is cool. They've got dark vision and passive perception, blah, blah, blah. They are challenge rating 3 on their own, which means that 4 level 3 adventurers would fight a Bugbear Chief and not suffer any losses. And again, the answer to that is, of course they wouldn't. They would all be hitting one monster for 3 rounds and then it would die.
Yep. He's got more health, but they're still going to die in a couple rounds.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They speak Common and Goblin as well, and so they're very, very similar, obviously, to the base Bugbear. The two things they have that are different is they have an ability called Heart of DC. Would you do the pronunciation?
Heart of Hrugek.
Thank you very much, sir. It has advantage on saving throws against being, charmed, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, stunned, or put to sleep. So all the sort of status, all the sort of level 1 spell status effects that you can generate pretty easily. It has advantage against all of those saving throws. Which is a great idea. Obviously, it's so that you avoid the problem of here's the big bad. Whoops, I cast sleep on it, and now it doesn't get to fight us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I mean, obviously, and this is the reason that this ability is cool. Your party are allowed to do that. That's part of the rules of the game. If the wizard has saved their sleep spell up until this moment, they're allowed to use it. And they're allowed to put this chieftain to sleep. But the game is just saying, it's a little bit harder. Yeah. It's a little bit harder to do this one because they're a little more intense than the regular Bugbear. They've got this fury from their god burning inside them that lets them kind of overcome your mortal magic.
Yeah.
Which is very kind of pulpy and cool. And then the only other thing they have is they have a multi-attack. They get to make 2 attacks in melee, which is just obviously good because they're a slightly higher level monster. That's kind of it with the stat blocks. The thing that immediately jumps to my head is, and I think this is something I might have touched on with previous monsters, but it's generally something I think is kind of cool, is when I look at these 2 stat blocks and I see a Bugbear and a Bugbear Chief, and they both speak Common and Goblin, my first instinct says take Common away from the Bugbear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if I'm using a tribe of bugbear and I know these bugbear have a chief, I'm not going to let any of the rest of the bugbears speak common. Because I just think it's so much cooler that, like, they're fighting these bugbears. The bugbears are just swearing at them in Goblin. Maybe, like, one of the party members, like the wizard who speaks every language for some reason. Like, you know, I don't know, like, half-elf wizard who has, like, 7 languages. And you're like, 7? Like, you're level 1. Why do you... is like, they're just, like, whatever. The party go, what do they say? It's like, they're just swearing at us. I'm not going to repeat it.
Yeah.
But then they actually encounter this chief, and the chief, like, you know, maybe greets them, maybe insults them, but insults them in common. And now they're like, whoa, you know, this guy's different.
And you know who's in charge after that. Like, oh, this guy is a cut above the rest of them. Like,
exactly.
He's something that you can't really mess with because he's obviously smarter, you know, and he's definitely the chief. So
yes, exactly. I want to talk about encounters with these guys because these stat blocks are kind of basic, but they're cool, and I think bugbears are a great example of a monstrous race where there's a lot of room to talk about them.
Yeah.
But before we do all that, I'm just real quick going to cover the playable bugbear.
Yeah.
Play bugbear. Bugbear. Sorry.
It's all right. So, are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Okay.
So in Volo's Guide to Monsters, which we are kind of avoiding, but we're gonna cover a little bit when we think it's really important. There are stats here. There are options for if you want to play a bugbear. So the bugbear is interesting. I'm going to mainly talk about its differences between the monster manual bugbear and the player character bugbear. So you lose brute, so you don't get to double all melee damage or or get an extra melee dice when you're using a weapon. So that's a little bit of a shame, obviously for the player, because they'd love to deal more damage. But I can kind of understand it. I think that the brute ability kind of relies on the fact that you're never going to use, relies on the fact that you're never going to be like a level 17 bugbear.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not going to get to do like a bunch of attacks. Like brute is almost a way of compensating for the fact that a bugbear only gets one attack. That its attacks are kind of meaner, right? And so, like, I think that's just a balance thing. It's kind of a shame when they do stuff like that, but I can understand it.
I spot something here, actually. It's quite interesting. Because one of the things here, because it keeps going, it has like alignment, size, speed, dark vision, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's one that's long-limbed, and it says, this is for a player character, for a player race. When you make a melee attack on your turn, your reach for it is 5 feet greater than normal. So, again, it kind of goes with he's a big guy, his limbs are long, and that's fine. But I've noticed the stat block for the monster doesn't have that.
Yeah, doesn't have it as an ability, doesn't incorporate it into the stat blocks. Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like they swapped out brute for long-limbed. So that's I guess fine. It is weird that like it is weird to be like, the monster race gets this thing and the player race gets this thing. That's kind of a little inelegant, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you can understand why. You get surprise attack. You actually do get the surprise attack, which is of course, if you surprise them, it's a little bit more restrictive because you can only use it once per combat, but I guess that makes sense. How often do you get to surprise a creature in combat anyway? And then, you have powerful build, which is kind of the default I'm a big person player trait. Like powerful build is you count as one size larger when you're determining your carrying capacity and your weight. You can blah, 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 blah. Push, drag, or lift, which obviously, like, I think the Goliath has. I think other races have it as well. But it's sort of just a default. You're big and strong. Even if you don't have a high strength score, you're just strong.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And that's it, really. The monstrous races in Volo's Guide aren't really very detailed. They're just basically a list of stats for if you're like, I really want to play a bugbear. How do they work?
Yeah.
You can be like, here's how they work, which is fine. I don't want to diminish that. But
I guess they're going with the fact that they already have all the flavor and lore in the monster manual, for
of course, yeah. And I mean, some people just want to play like a big wolfman person. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's much more we need to talk about in terms of the player race. They are an option, and
but it's good to touch upon them at least.
Yeah, and I guess let's kind of lead into talking about encounters, because I guess we could talk a little bit about players as a bugbear.
Yeah, of course. So let's roll on to encounters.
So the only thing I was going to mention is that if one of your party members, and I'm going to talk about this right at the start so that I don't forget, if one of your party members is playing a bugbear, okay, so the stats in the monster manual, they're not that exciting, to be honest. So what I would say is like lean into the lore of the bugbears, which obviously is sort of limited, I suppose, in terms of they're just a monstrous race. They have an evil god. They love decapitating people. They love ambushing people. But I think what I would try to do is I would try to make their tribe important.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the world, but for the campaign. So if someone's playing a bugbear, and maybe they're from the Broken Fist tribe or something like that, right? And then, you just keep having the Broken Fist show up, and they really hate this one bugbear for leaving the tribe, and they just keep coming after you.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that. And maybe one of the tribe members makes a deal with a demon and becomes a powerful warlock or something. And now, and they're all doing it to come after you, and it's sort of a consequence. I guess, you could do this with anyone, but I'm just thinking how they are monstrous, and I guess I want to use the fact that they come from this bad place and that they have sort of done well to rise above it. I want to make that a point of the campaign because I think it's more interesting that way.
Yeah. You do definitely want to go with the fact that they are scary boys. They're monstrous boys. You can't just it would be kind of strange. Well, it's possible, but it would be strange to have I'm a bugbear, but I'm a paladin of Bahamut. It's of a lawful good god.
I always think that when you're playing a monstrous race, the paladin almost makes the most sense.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, it kind of implies that I've reformed, and this god came to me in a dream or gave me a vision, and now I follow them.
Exactly.
You have a point there. We're point retracted then. So
no. It's a fair point that it does seem contradictory, but I always think it's a great built-in arc that you're right. I came from this I came from what most people consider a terrible place, and I even did terrible things, but I'm different now, and I want to prove that. And this, the oath that I've taken, and the armor I wear, and the tabard I carry with my god symbol. This is all part of me changing into a better person.
It's such a cool idea for first of all, a character arc, and just an idea for the world, and to set up how your gods work in your world. Because why did this god, this lawful good god, go to a bugbear of all creatures?
Yeah, exactly.
What's their what is his what's their goal with that? It's just kind of a strange thing. But
what's their goal? What makes that bugbear special? There's a lot of cool questions there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's also it's a nice thing, right? It's the idea that anyone can be redeemed. It's just a case of they need to kind of want that redemption, or they can get lucky. It's cool. I guess the other thing is obviously bugbears make good rogues because they're sneaky and they love stealing.
Yeah.
Just like every rogue player. That was pejorative. I apologize. But also they make good barbarians because they're big and strong and they can hit things that are far away, and they love big weapons, and barbarians can ambush things. They just prefer not to.
Yeah. And even fighter and ranger, and as well.
Ranger makes a lot of sense actually, especially because the idea that rangers are kind of caught between two worlds. Bugbears kind of fit that as well. But heckin to all these suggested classes, just play a bugbear wizard and be what? I just love reading.
Yeah.
I just love my local library.
I think our friend Jack played a bugbear wizard one time called what was his name? Steve of Not a Bear. And he was convincing people that, or he did convince people that he wasn't a bugbear. He was just a regular old wizard. I
guess that's what disguised self is for.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think he just had a haircut or something. I don't know. But characters were crazy back then.
All right. So encounters with bugbears. Let's start from the ground floor and work our way up. So you want to fight a bugbear. That's the title of this part.
Yeah.
So bugbears are very straightforward monsters. It's very obvious from their stat line how they want to fight, and even it's obvious from their description how they want to fight. They want to ambush the party, they want to jump them, and they want to run away if it looks like they're losing. They have no sense of honor, or they are not committed. They are not so committed to whatever they're doing that they would die for it.
Yeah, and that's actually also you got an encounter there with the bugbear, and then you might have and then that's kind of a venture hook for you beat up the bugbear who ambushed you, and he's like, no, don't, you haven't captured. He's like, no, don't hurt me, don't kill me, I'll give you information about my clan who did this, and they're going to do even worse stuff. And they're like, where is your clan then? Show us. And then he leads you there, and then you're like, okay, thanks. And you fight more bugbears. That's like an adventure hook for you there, if the players go down that route.
And even a simpler hook is just that the bugbears ambush the party fight them off, and the bugbears run away. Because a lot of players would be like, no, they don't, after them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like that's the start of an adventure. That's the start of a bugbear dungeon where, the bugbears are going to hugbear you.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Watch out. That's they're the lawful good bugbears, I think, the hugbears.
That's a good name for a lawful good bugbear.
Yeah,
no. So I think like there's a couple of things I would probably muck with this bugbear stat line with. So the default bugbear here, and we'll talk about the chief a little bit as well. But the default bugbear here obviously has a one-handed weapon and a shield and throwing weapons and hide armor. And I think I would drop the shield and give them a great axe.
Yeah.
I think that it's a great way to. I think almost my default bugbear would be no shield and a great axe. Failing that, I think I would say Morningstar and not a Morningstar, a scimitar and a dagger, or two scimitars.
Yeah.
Let them dual wield because they're kind of like sneaky and roguish.
Yeah, but and what's cool about if you gave him a two-handed weapon and no shield, that means he's perfect for like a level 1 party boss, because he does a lot of damage. He'll be doing 2d12 damage with that.
Yep.
But he would have 14 AC, so he would be relatively easy to hit. Kind of a glass cannon.
Yeah. Exactly, like much easier to hit, especially I suppose that's the thing, right? Like if we assume a fight with just bugbears, maybe a level 2 party fighting like 3 bugbears, and they ambush them, I think it's reasonable to say that like the bugbears are going to get a really good first round where they jump the party, and they probably like trigger their surprise attacks and like throw javelins to do that, and then follow that up with a charge, and that's all really good. But I think a lot of parties could turn that around.
Yeah.
But the other way to use them, and I think another way to use them that makes a lot of sense, is get the default bugbear here and put them in charge of a tribe of goblins.
Yeah.
Because it says they love to enslave goblins. That's they are a related clan. They're all in the goblinoid family. And obviously the cool thing about the bugbear is that it's really obvious that it is not a goblin. And it's very obvious that it's in charge.
Yeah.
And this is kind of interesting because this is sort of, I guess, a reversal of what I said before. If you had a tribe of goblins led by a bugbear, that bugbear gets to speak common because none of the goblins do.
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking about that idea that like the tribe's leaders, the tribe's important people, can speak like the man's tongue, right? And I mean man in the classical sense of like the free folk of the world, the good folk, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I mean like humans, but like the idea that they speak it, and obviously then monstrous races generally don't, and it maybe takes a bit of time to learn. So like the ones in charge are the ones who are like a little smarter, a little more attentive, and they've picked up this language. It's like back when we talked about the Bahir. In the way back when, where we mentioned how Sojkanth, who was it was Lost Caverns of was it the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth?
It was the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, and his name was Lud. I'm pretty sure.
Lud the Bahir. Yeah, it described how Lud was an unusually intelligent Bahir who had learned the man's tongue from what they had said while he was trying to eat them.
Yeah.
Which is very funny, and kind of. Something like that would be appropriate for a bugbear. The idea that like the chieftain has like captured and interrogated people and learned their language. So I think I'd like keep to that idea.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and I think that's definitely the case where I'm going for the great axe and I might even just drop the javelins altogether. Actually, if I'm doing that, like if they're gonna be the tribe's boss, I might just have them waiting in a room for the players. So they've just got a great axe and like nothing else. Just the great axe, hide armor, and otherwise they're kind of drop the shield, drop the javelins. They're just a big brawler,
And what would be cool is you have a regular bugbear leading goblins as a encounter. That means when you get to the inevitable encounter of a bugbear chief leading regular bugbears, when you get to that part, it feels like the players are like, oh, I remember when a regular bugbear was tough to fight. Now I'm fighting a bunch of them and a stronger version. It's a nice progression for the players.
There's an awesome like escalation there where they fight like one bugbear, one hen bugbears, one bugbear at the top of a tribe of goblins. And I think I'd like to link these. So I think what I'd do is I'd say that one bugbear has like a mark or a brand or a tattoo that like, you know, if someone can speak goblin, they're like, oh, that means they're in exile. And then they find the tribe that the bugbear was exiled from, and it's a tribe of all bugbears with like maybe some goblin slaves, because obviously they keep slaves. Maybe some goblin slaves, but it's basically you got to fight a load of bugbears. You got to cut through wave after wave of bugbears, and at the top is this like bugbear chief who's like, you know, twice as tall and like, you know, massive and has this bellowing voice that like terrifies the party and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I love that sense of like, you know, the things you do are linked, but also there's a kind of we beat that one thing that was really hard, and now we're stronger, and now we're beating a bunch of that thing.
And it gives the players that like feeling of, oh, I'm getting stronger, you know, and I feel like I can take on the entire world now.
Yeah. So the bugbear chief. Okay, so they are basically the same as the regular bugbear. Obviously, as we said before, I think if you give your bugbear chief a great axe, you got to be careful, because it can deal 4d12 plus. It can deal 4d12 plus 6 damage per turn.
4d12.
Yeah, because if you give it a great axe, it gets to do a d12, and then it adds a d12 because of brute, and then it has multi-attack.
Yeah.
So it gets to make 2 attacks. So that's pretty scary. I think that's really cool, by the way. I think it's awesome that this bugbear is terrifying and huge, and like has this massive weapon that deals loads of damage. But I do think that's kind of a case of like, you know, as always, that you could very easily accidentally kill a party with that.
Yeah.
Especially if they are at the end of a big line of bugbears. I suppose the other thing is that like in all of these cases with all these bugbears, you know, so yeah, this is the interesting thing actually. There's almost like there's 2 ways that you run into bugbears, right? Like they ambush you, and if they start to lose, they'll run, or you go after them, and in that case, they don't have anywhere to run to. Like they'll just they almost have to fight to the death because they can't run.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. So I guess that's something I was keeping in mind. I was thinking about like, you know, what would it be interesting when a bugbear chief ambushes you? And my instinct said one of those big nets that hangs from a, you know, that's like they step on it and then like the big rope pulls them all up.
Yeah,
and they're like,
the Return of the Jedi kind of trap. Yeah, the Ewoks too.
Basically. Yeah, so I mean they're pretty straightforward as they are. I think what I'd like to do. So you're either going to fight bugbear in charge of other things, or you're going to fight a bugbear in charge of more bugbears. I do think that even if you're doing a tribe of bugbears, include at least goblins. You know, include kind of other things. Try to emphasize the idea that like they're kind of, you know, ecologically linked, because I think that just makes the fight a little more interesting. What actually might be really cool is if you had to say a dungeon with a bugbear tribe as kind of the main enemy, they could keep goblin slaves that if the party play their cards right, they can persuade to turn against the bugbears. Because that would be really cool, right? Like, you know, rather than the final battle being you fighting the bugbears in the bugbear throne room or whatever, like you lead like this, like, you know, you lead like half a dozen goblins in like an uprising against the bugbears.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, and that adds a little bit of depth and like a bit of a puzzle to the dungeon, if this is going to be a dungeon.
Yeah, and like politics.
Yeah, like how do I? There's more than one way to defeat the bugbears. We could go through every room. We can defeat whatever monster we're put through, or like you can use your head and say, you can let's say roll survival or give me an intelligence check. And like, oh, well, you know that these goblins don't really tend to get along with each other. They don't really like each other that much. So like, okay, then you can maybe, talk to the goblins, say, hey, how about, do you want to join us? We'll give you money. We'll give you stuff. We'll, you don't want to be enslaved by bugbears the entire life. And then they'll help you fight the bugbears at the end. Like, is this kind of, when players use their head like that, they feel real fulfilled
Yeah, absolutely. You could even do kind of a cool like setup fight where like early in the dungeon, maybe in like the first room or whatever, like the players fight a bugbear who's like basically like using goblins as a meat shield, and like maybe to emphasize this, you give the bugbear, say, replace their normal weapon with a whip.
Yeah.
And maybe give them a rule that they can like as a bonus action whip a goblin, like dealing normal damage, but then the goblin gets maybe advantage on the next attack roll or something.
Yeah.
So that like there's clearly like there's a reason the bugbear is doing it, but it's a terrible thing to do, and like it's obvious from the fight that the goblins are deeply unhappy with what's going on.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about it, but now this is a good point because you pretty much just mentioned it. You can almost use his intimidation as like a mechanic in the fight, where you can give him like a bonus action where he does pretty much a help action.
Oh,
but the help action would actually, flavor wise, it'll just be him intimidating and say, you better kill those guys, and like you can have him whip the goblins. You haven't even whipped the other bugbears, and like by using fear tactics, it gives the jabronis the advantage. Or what does help do? Is it advantage, or is it like a +2?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, the aid another action gives advantage on the next attack roll or saving throw, I think.
Yeah.
I think because it's intimidation, you could say it only works on attack rolls or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the idea is like he's just provoking them.
And I think I had this idea before where he yells and he has such a bellowing voice that
it's like a sonic attack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like,
yeah, so like I had this idea where he would yell and it would be like a cone coming out of his mouth.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, you can do that. And also, actually, another idea I had is give him a magic weapon. Give him a magic axe. Give him something like that. So if he's like a boss, and make him a little bit tougher than the other guys. And if you kill him, then you have a cool magic weapon. Like, I don't know, maybe a +1 axe or +1 sword might be a bit too, bland about it, but it's still good,
Yeah, I mean, you could always you could kind of double down on that idea that they're like keeping the goblins in line, and you could give them like a +1 whip, or like maybe even like a whip of the slave master, and like you can hit an ally to help them, right? And then the party are like, so is anybody gonna use this? Are we happy with this?
Yeah.
But like, anything really, like even something as simple as like, actually, what might be kind of cool would be like if you had like, something like some kind of like totem, right? Like a totem from Hrugek. Maybe it's just a decapitated head, because Hrugek loves decapitated heads.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a decapitated head, right? But the head is like a totem of bugbear power, so you can like use it to intimidate goblins. You can like you brandish it towards them, and they have to make a save where they're frightened and they run away.
Yeah.
That could be kind of cool. Yeah, I think like I think in general, yeah, at least give the like bugbear something with their intimidation check. I think even something as simple as like I was actually thinking of maybe like a slightly easier solution might be that like the bugbear rolls intimidation, and everybody else, maybe just enemies, but maybe everybody, maybe just like any non-bugbears, right? That might be a fun way to put it. So that the goblins have to save, but the players have to save. But also, like, even if the goblins are fighting on the player side, then they have to save as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the save would be like, if you fail, you're just shaken, because that's kind of a small effect. At least I remember it being in Pathfinder. I don't know if it's different in 5th edition. I have too many editions in my head. Oh, cool. Actually, hey, here's a fun point. The Bugbear War Dancer we mentioned before is basically kind of a bugbear sadist that uses a flail.
Okay.
So that might kind of play into the idea that these bugbears are enslaving goblins and like keeping them under the thumb.
Yeah.
Which might be kind of cool. War Dancer, they've got a flail. They like to throw it at people. The main thing I can think is that they have an at-will attack called Flail Dance. It's so beautiful. Which basically is an attack with the weapon, that lets the bugbear also shove somebody. So that might be interesting if you gave that to your chieftain as kind of a different power. Actually, that might be a great magic weapon. Like a flail, but it's like the flail head is like the skull of a powerful enemy.
Yeah.
That like, Hrugek has enchanted because it's like a totem to their dark god and its power.
Yeah.
So that kind of plays into like, you've given them a flail and you've made that a magic item, a cool magic item that is maybe evil, which could be kind of cool as well. We've talked about before how it'd be cool if you could purify cursed items. It might also be cool if you could like, sanctify magic items from evil creatures. That might be fun. That'd be a great use of the ceremony ritual that the cleric and paladin have access to. There's a pro tip. And then you can steal abilities from this Bugbear War Dancer, which is a 4th edition monster. The main thing I think is just that you can basically say that it can, after it hits someone with the flail, it gets to shove them as well. Like maybe once a round, or maybe as a bonus action after making the attack, they also get to shove somebody.
Yeah.
And I think you give them like sort of a flail AoE, right? And I think again we use that language of non-bugbears. So we like say that the Bugbear War Chief Flail Dancer, we've made a new name because it's a new monster. Gets to like it targets like an area, like maybe a 10-foot area in front of it, like a cone or something, and it basically just wiggles its flail around in there. And every non-bugbear has to make a dexterity saving throw. And like, maybe like enemies that fail take this amount of damage, allies that fail take this amount of damage, but also some other effect, right?
And I like the idea that it goes with where I think it says something there in the stat block. I just can't find it, but he does a flail dance, and there's like disadvantage on attacking him or something, like because his flail is flying around a place, and when you try to hit him, it just like clanks off the flail.
There's a power right here, flail barrier. And basically you take it, actually just basically the bugbear has resistance from damage from creatures that it hits with its flail in an area. So that might be a cool thing as well. Have it do like a flail, defensive maneuver. But I think the thing about this is that like I think in general, like the monster design is a little different between 4th edition and 5th edition.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't take all of the Bugbear War Dancer's powers. I think I take one and add it to the Bugbear Chief's stat block, because the Bugbear Chief's stat block is pretty well put together as it is. It's got a special passive that lets it deal more damage in melee. It's got a special passive or a special triggered ability that lets it deal more damage when it surprises. It's got a special ability that means that it's harder to take down with conditions early on in the fight or at all, which is handy. And it's got some weapons, and it's got a multi-attack. So I think that like, even though it's a very simple creature, I don't think I would try to complicate it too much.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to give it more, I think what I might do is either make a Bugbear Shaman, where I just take the baseline Bugbear stats and then add like up the wisdom and give it some cleric spells. Probably just like 2 cleric spells, because I wouldn't want to remember too many cleric spells, because that would be a lot of work.
Yeah, and like a couple of like cantrips that shoot fireballs or something, or shoot fire bolts maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And then it would like the shaman would kind of buff the Bugbear Chief during battle or whatever. But yeah, I don't think I'd change it too much. I think I'd steal like 1 power from the War Dancer, whatever one I think is easiest to use.
Yeah.
It's got an encounter power, which in 4th edition means it could use it once per fight. So in this case, it would just be kind of realistically, it's once per day, because how many fucking times you're going to fight the same Bugbear Chief, realistically.
Or make the Strangler and just have him strangle your players.
Yeah, just kill all your party with a Strangler.
Yeah.
He strangles the whole party.
Just one Strangler, one screaming Bugbear who runs down the road and is yelling, and you're like, let's stop him. And then your players can't stop him. He just strangles them one by one.
Yeah, it's too powerful.
Yeah.
That'd be the best campaign.
10 out of 10, good game.
Good. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the Bugbear entries there are pretty straightforward. I think it's reasonable to say that Bugbears in general are not a setting villain. I don't even really think of them as a campaign villain.
Yeah.
I think they're a very incidental monster, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's important that D&D has different classes of monsters. Some of them are beholders or mind flayers or liches, which are like, I am the biggest evil thing in the world. Yeah. And then you have bugbears who are just bullies. They're just like super strong, big bullies that bully everyone, and nobody likes them.
Sure, you gotta fight something at level 1, you know?
You do, yeah, and they are a great fight for level 1. They've got some interesting powers. I suppose to me, I've started using a system in my most recent campaign with an emphasis on, you roll random encounters when you travel in the wild, and then I compare the passive perception of the monsters that they would encounter with the passive stealth of the party, and then I tell them basically whether or not they get attacked, whether or not they get ambushed, whether or not they get to ambush something. So to me, like, obviously, if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago, I don't think I would have cared about the Bugbear's high stealth. But now, to me, that's actually a really useful part of their stat block. And I think that while it isn't always easy to incorporate that stuff into our encounters, I think in the case of the Bugbear, you kind of owe it to them, because they have like a really good stealth modifier, especially for such a low-level creature.
Yeah.
So I'd be really inclined to say, like, figure out some way of letting the Bugbear use its stealth at some stage in combat. I think that not doing that is such a missed opportunity. I don't know how. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I know obviously overland ambushes make sense, but I don't know how I'd incorporate the Bugbear's stealthiness into their lairs. That's something that I'm still figuring out.
You can maybe have them like, they're building lairs, and they have like these, almost like these little kind of, crawling tunnels built in, ready for
ready. Like foxholes kind of thing.
Yeah, stuff like that. Maybe they're kind of ready for if someone springs a trap at them. That's kind of I guess that would be more of an intelligent creature thing. But these guys, the chief can be, an average intelligence, so maybe he can be have those those crawl holes there, and then when people if they know you're coming in, then maybe they can like hide in there, and then if you're walking through, then they attack you. So maybe something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I suppose, you don't necessarily need to use their stealthiness for the whole dungeon.
Yeah.
But a really simple way to make them different would be to say that wherever your Bugbear lair is, the entrance is probably kind of hard to find. I think it's reasonable to say that a high stealth score is both that they are good at hiding, but also probably that they are good at hiding things.
Yeah.
So I think it might be reasonable to say that, like, it can be difficult to find the entrance even to a Bugbear's lair because... Or their hideout or whatever, because they are good at hiding, right? Like, and they know how to avoid being detected. And I think it's also important to remember, like, the monsters know that they're good at being quiet. Like, they're not, like, they're stupid, but they're not, like, they don't lack basic self-awareness. They know I am very good at staying quiet. And so I guess what I'd say is, like, as well as the hideout being difficult to find, I think I might add that that there is almost always, like, one or two Bugbears guarding the entrance, that they are like well hidden, regardless of whether or not the party have alerted the Bugbears ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like if the party haven't, there's one well hidden Bugbear. If the party have, there's two well hidden Bugbears. And maybe it's something as simple as the one hidden Bugbear at the entrance, like, doesn't just be like, I'm here now, and let the party beat them up.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this Bugbear, like, lets the party pass and waits until, the human with the stupid face and the shiny robe and the big spell book waits until they get close and then jumps them first, right? Like, and obviously, like, this depends a lot on the kind of party you're playing for.
Yeah.
But I suppose, like, that's the thing.
Yeah, maybe he can sneak up on the wizard. Like, when they go into a room, the party see a bunch of Bugbears hanging around, and then they're like, oh, let's fight these Bugbears. And then, like, bam, like, before you even knew it, there was a Bugbear behind you the entire time, and he stabs your wizard. Oh, crap.
I think that's a really good way to do it. I think it would be really cool if it was like, if there's two Bugbears at the front because they've been alerted, then they will attack the party that are coming and try to raise the alarm, right? Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if there's only one Bugbear and there's 4 party members, or maybe 5, whatever size your party is, then they will go, well, I will die if I fight these things, and I am not stupid enough to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait for them to pass, and once I hear them fighting in the next room, I'm going to jump in and attack them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn the battle on them, and then immediately, maybe the players are like, this doesn't make sense, and if they say that, then I guess, they're just not the kind of party that appreciates that. But yeah. I do think that, to me, I guess I feel like I want to use that stealth score, right? I want to use it for something cool. I want to make it part of their characterization.
Yeah, there's they're kind of a basic, simple guy, nothing too more really to say. I think we kind of said our piece on the bugbears.
Well, we've said a lot.
We said a lot on them. They're very good for early level fights. You can just a bugbear or bugbear chief is good for like any starting adventures. But no, they wouldn't really be much of a big bad. Like if you wanted to use a monster race, and I'd say as like a big bad for like a adventure, then I'd say like orcs or hobgoblins would be better. But bugbears are good to have there around. So
yeah, and I suppose if you do want to use them as kind of a major villain, I would say definitely lean into that ecology of other goblins, because I think it's reasonable to say that most bugbears on their own, they're not a threat to anything larger than a village.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of bugbears with a lot of goblins working for them, and then like one or two hobgoblins who are kind of advising their tactics. Now you've got like a really dangerous force. And that would be enough for a low-level campaign, I think. Honestly, I think a well-positioned bad guy goblin force would be totally appropriate for like 1st to 5th level, maybe even.
So that's the bugbear.
That's the bugbear. That's the big, sneaky, bear-like, bug-like bear bug. Goblin.
Guy. He is goblin
person.
Guy. Goblin.
He's
person.
goblin.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the bugbear. It's a cool creature. I've played a bugbear before, and I have used them in fights. They're a fairly versatile low-level monster that's good to lead a tribe of goblins.
Do you real quickly just want to talk about what your bugbear when you played him was?
All right. Do you remember my bugbear's name? Because I don't.
No, I don't.
That's fine. I played a Bugbear Barbarian in DC's game, and I did that because back in 4th edition, they got to keep that brute thing but it was slightly different. It was that you treated weapons as if their dice were 1 bigger than they actually were. So if a weapon was a D6 weapon, you got to treat it as if it was a D8 weapon, which was pretty cool. So I played a barbarian. I emphasized picking powers that just let me roll a lot of dice when I attacked. And I picked, I think, the mole, which was like the weapon with the biggest dice. So they got even bigger because I was a bugbear.
Yeah.
And when I described my character, I said, oh, it's just a tree trunk.
Yeah.
My character just has a tree over their shoulder that they hit people with.
Yeah.
And I think I had an attack that dealt what was in 4th edition described as 4 weapon damage, which meant I rolled my weapon dice 4 times, which I think ended up being something like 8d8.
Yeah.
Plus my strength modifier, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Obviously it was a kind of a short-lived game. I think it was just a one-shot.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it was a fun experimental character, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had with just being like, oh, my character, they don't have a weapon. They just picked up a tree one day and just kept it with them.
Yeah.
Good old tree. Nothing beats tree.
Yeah, I do have a memory of you just like, right, guys, give me your dice, and then you just had like a handful of like D8s in your hand and just tossed them onto the table. So yeah, for you was very fun for just like grabbing a bunch of dice and rolling them. So yeah, so that's a bugbear. Yeah, maybe steal Dan's idea, make him have a weapon that's not a.
Yeah. Sorry, you should steal that for your bugbear chief.
Yeah, just give him a tree trunk.
Yeah, just give them a little bit more strength and just give them a tree and like make them really big and then like that's a pretty cool like lieutenant for a hobgoblin boss.
Yeah,
just like the biggest bugbear.
You're not gonna want to mess with a guy just like tossing this tree around at the players. Like that's
cool. I like that a lot. That'd be a great villain.
It would be. Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave you on that one then.
Yeah. If you've played bugbears, even in 5th edition, because I don't have any experience with it as a 5th edition character, or if you have any cool fights or lair ideas where you think the sort of stealthiness of the bugbear could be used well, it'd be awesome to hear from you. If you have any, ideas about other kind of, special abilities to give the bugbear, use that intimidation for something other than kind of suggesting a certain type of characteristic. That'd be awesome. You can, if you want to leave these comments, there's comments below the episode on our website, which is creatureclubpodcast.com.
And if you like this, then please subscribe to us on iTunes, on...
we're on Player FM. and I think we're on a bunch of other places that just grab RSS feeds, because we've just got an RSS feed. If you go on our website, I'm not going to say the name again because I'm not selling that hard, but the RSS feed is there, and you can just subscribe from it.
Yeah, we have a contact page, a contact us page there where you can send us a message if you want. You can send in us homebrew ideas for monsters or magic items or anything you come up with, classes, whatever you want. Throw us some homebrews. If you can either have made them yourself, you can either have found them, but please put down a name if there is one of whoever made it there.
Absolutely. And we want to credit people.
Or even if you have an idea for like when it comes to homebrews, if you just like say the name, you can have we can come up with the rest for you, like
if you just or if you just want to have us talk about an idea, like just send it in. Like we'd love to do an episode all about feedback we've got from people and homebrews and stuff like that.
If you want to ask us a question or something, just go ahead. Like we'll answer back, I'd say.
We also have a Gmail, creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com, if you want to send us emails, which is I guess more useful if you want to send like PDFs or whatever. That's a great way to send those.
That is it on that one.
Rate and review us on iTunes, right?
Yep, that will help us if you do that. And if you have a friend who likes D&D and hasn't listened to us yet, please share this podcast. We always say the animated objects episode's pretty good, so
it is. But you know what? This week, I was thinking back to the Aboleth episode and the encounter ideas we had, and those are fucking rad. I really want to steal them. So, I mean, they were my ideas, but they were our ideas. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. They were our ideas, so we can't steal them. But I was thinking like, God, I want to get a party to like a level where I can do that encounter. It sounds so cool. So maybe that one instead, or just start from the beginning and get through them. I mean, I like to think we get better as we go on, so we'll see.
Just throw us that one. But anyway, until next time, we'll probably do something different again, like maybe a villain squad or another treasure trove or something. We don't know yet.
We don't know. If you have any preference, let us know, and we'll keep that in mind when we're talking about it. Tim is still gone for a bit, so it's sort of open season, honestly.
But until then, I have been Mikey.
And I've been Dan.
Stay cool.